A quick content warning. This episode explores themes of suicide. Please take care when listening. I can't sleep. Why the hell do I keep thinking about work? I was promised more salary increases, more recognition. But it never came. And now here I am, losing my hair, getting older, and all for what? What am I doing with my life? Whispers in the wind. Today we're diving into Michail's story. A story about finding freedom, leaving behind a life that no longer served him, and discovering happiness through traveling the world. From a childhood that shaped his struggles to partners who transformed his perspective, Michail reclaimed the life he truly deserved. This is his story. Where does your story start?
Back in university, that's where I kind of trailed and stemmed from. So
Okay.
during uni, I did a course called Design and Coding, which was very, very niche. So it's very technical programming as well as design orientated. And so I kind of went into that direction because I wanted to basically earn more money. So I want to do something that I both loved and also could do pretty well. So I ended up going into that course. And over the period of 3 years, everybody dropped out except me. So I was literally the only person left in my actual course for the year. And I literally had to graduate all on my own. Right at the end. So that kind of stems where I started in a sense. Plus during that time period, I got kicked out of my home by my parents. It doesn't sound as bad as it is. It was fairly tame. I knew in advance it was happening.
Why were you kicked out of your home from your parents?
Just because they're moving across a different side of London.
There wasn't anything hostile or anything.
Well, my mom got married to a new husband, and then he wasn't kind of keen on having a 19-year-old kid around living off of his big ass welfare.
So I take it this wasn't the original dad. What happened with the original dad?
In uni, first year when I got kicked out, moved to Thamesmead. I lived on my own for a few months, but then didn't like it there and ended up moving closer to my dad in Greenwich. So I basically kind of partially lived in the same place as him, renting separate rooms. It wasn't that great. The place was absolute derelict and was bad and disgusting, but I had to basically pull through, basically rented a room throughout my uni.
When you say derelict and bad, could you describe the sort of situations you were living in? I know there are some people in London that live with rats and
Oh yeah,
damps and
I had mice sometimes in the area, and it was basically just disgusting. I didn't have heating a lot of the time. My windows broken. I had to top up electricity would always run out. I almost died multiple times because I fainted and almost cracked my head in as I had to go to the hospital, but that was slightly later on.
Wow.
My dad moved away from the UK because he was just too depressed and sick of all of it. And I told him, just go. He was only staying around because of me.
Where did he move?
Back home to Lithuania. So that's where I'm originally from.
Lithuania?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I know I've got a few Lithuanian friends as well. That's good. Okay. So you graduated uni, I take it?
Yeah, in uni, first year, I was one of few people who actually did the course. Then gradually people started to drop out. I was the only one left in the first year, and I ended up getting pretty much one-to-one tuition throughout my studies while I was there. So it was quite interesting because I got a lot of attention, which is great. Not a lot of people can say that, but at the same time, it was a lot less because there's only one student. So they basically spread out the sessions longer periods of time. I did collaborate a lot with other people just because It was literally the only time I would be able to communicate or like network. During that time period, I ended up having 5 different jobs around the uni as well.
5 jobs during uni.
Yeah, and I could have more.
Did you not sleep?
Some people would say no, but yeah, I was literally like workaholic, studying, doing everything I could, trying to also support myself financially as well. I got a first at the end.
And you got a first.
Yeah, and I ended up helping people.
Brava. That's what I'm going to say, brava. Okay. So from your uni, what jobs did you actually end up doing?
Well, I went into becoming a UX UI designer or / product designer in the way. It depends on how you want to phrase it. Pretty much the same thing.
So what is a product designer then?
So it's essentially someone that designs the software that you use, such as phone applications or anything like that. So rather than actually focusing on developing it, like all the coding, my primary role is to make the UI, make sure that it's user-friendly.
During this time, I take it life was actually pretty good.
Yes, it was quite exciting. It felt like I was making a difference, and it was like a bigger picture. And then after that, it kind of slowly started to deteriorate because the pressure started to increase quite highly. Plus, I was still living in the same place.
So you're still living in the sort of rat-infested place?
Yeah, I was still living there for the first like half a year, so I wasn't super happy. I ended up basically moving and then having to move again shortly after because the place got sold as well, so got bounced around.
Right.
And then, yeah, I ended up where I'm living at the moment, so I've been here for a little while. But during that time period, work was great. I was learning a lot. It was quite exciting for a good while, but then things started to change and I started to get highly burnt out because I no longer felt in control of what I was doing early on, just because I felt like I could do a lot better, and I used to do much better work when I was back in uni, like when I had at least some remnants of control of my life. But also that really comes down to your management and who's in charge of you. We had a person come on and become the head of design, which I love him as a person. He's very great one-on-one, but as a manager, he was absolutely terrible.
Why was he so terrible?
He was quite eccentric, but you can kind of get that from some Italian people. They have a lot of character in them. They're very like loud. They're very quite emotional about a lot of the decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not. So I'm very like robotic. I need control. I need like structure a lot of the time. I'm okay with having some chaos, but it has to be like controlled chaos.
Yeah, I get it. Everyone's different though, but I get that.
Yeah, so like the way he kind of run things, it wasn't great for like my mental health, and it really quickly deteriorated, and I felt like I was just a cog in the machine, and I was just basically fighting like someone trying to go up river. Rather than being supported in my role, I felt
you were on yourself.
I literally had to rely on myself to like push myself forward in some senses.
Okay. So was there a specific moment or feeling during this time that made you realize something needed to change? Because surely if you're going down, you're burnt out, you're sad, I don't think you stayed there for that long, did you?
I stayed there for about 2.5 years. I actually kind of toughed it out for a year. So I was already starting to get burned out like 1.5 years in. But then some exciting things were happening. Our company was being sold to a larger conglomerate, let's just put it that way.
Fair enough.
I got a bit of a payout out of it as well.
Nice.
So yeah, some exciting, plus also allowed me to learn how a larger scale business also is run. So we had some basic communication with the other design departments in the new company that bought us. I got to learn how they basically end up doing stuff and seeing how things actually should be done rather than the chaos I basically got accustomed to in my current work environment. So I stayed around to learn as much as I could before I just couldn't take it anymore.
So you just couldn't take a lot of the chaos that was going on and everything?
Yeah, it was just mismanaged.
So this question comes from one of our fans of the show, from the Teagle. His question was, what was the catalyst that made you quit?
Some promises were not kept to me, at least by him. I just felt like I wasn't heard, or he just did what was best for him rather than doing what's best for his employees, or and so yeah, I just felt misheard.
What were these promises that weren't kept?
Salary and like increases, like promotions, etc. So I just felt like I was stagnating.
So do you think they're like putting a bait in front of you to work harder, but you were getting nothing in return?
I was getting stuff in return, like all things considered, like in the time frame that I was there, I definitely did pretty well and scaled up my salary quite fast compared to anybody in my experience would.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so once you knew things had to change, what was the hardest part about actually doing that change? Because if things weren't changing,
Yeah,
the manager wasn't cooperating with you, anything like that, I'm assuming you left your job.
that's exactly what I did. And it took me a good few months, maybe even half a year, of just debating and like going back and forth, trying to make sure that that was the right choice at the time. As I said, like there was bait in front of me. They were like, oh yeah, we'll give you a promotion, we'll give you a raise, blah, blah, blah. Which basically every time I'd raise it or like I'd inquire about it, I was like, oh yeah, no, it's coming, you have to wait, you have to wait. And it just felt like I don't need to take this.
Yeah.
I could literally, like, I know what I'm worth, luckily, although I did have a bit of an ego, unfortunately. Now it's definitely come down since then, just because I've learned and become older. But as a designer, a lot of us have god complexes, a little bit, at least some remnants of it.
To be honest, I think that's just an artist thing, not even just a designer thing.
Yeah, like most artists have a slightly like god complex. So I end up thinking like making like whiteboard diagrams, trying to like do pros and cons, whether I should leave or stay, how long I should stay, and then after a while, like, I literally wanted to do an April Fool's joke and basically submit my my notice on April's Fool's, but unfortunately I caught COVID. So
jokes was on you then.
the joke was on me. So I really wanted to submit on that day, but ended up basically waiting like a couple of weeks after I came back to work when I gave in my notice.
What was actually the hardest part about making the decision? What was you struggling with the most?
It's just not being secure. Oh, I say that. It's just not knowing what's going to happen in a way. But at the same time, I've always been quite ambitious. So I knew like I would recover either way. Like whatever happened, I'll be okay.
So what made that mind shift then? From basically, you said you worked out pros and cons.
Yeah.
You were thinking. So what made the mind shift of where you said, you know what?
I just couldn't take it anymore. I was losing hair. I was literally...
You were losing hair?
Yeah, I was literally losing hair from my stress. I was just so depressed, so stressed out. I just like... That was even like months after. Like I was losing hair for a while. That's just COVID in general. Like just being stuck in the pandemic wasn't great.
Yeah.
But just knowing that I was constantly overthinking, I couldn't sleep. I would always have like running thoughts. I would end up basically staying awake until 3 a.m. Like just like laying in bed, like not being able to control my thoughts, thinking about work, which was really not healthy in any way or form.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt like enough is enough. It's like I have plenty of savings at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was saving towards buying my own first property, like my own house or like flat.
Really?
Yeah, and I was pretty much at that point, and I could have done it. But like I thought my mental health was more important, so I ended up basically taking the high road.
Interesting. Okay. So what was it like when you finally left? What was running through your mind in those sort of first few days? You've handed your notice. What did you feel? What did you think?
Yeah. When I handed in my notice,
Yeah.
they grasped onto me and they tried to keep me. So they pretty much almost gave me what I wanted in terms of salary increase. So
Right.
at the same time, I declined. But when it came to actually quitting the first few days, like I remember the first day after the weekend on a Monday, I was like, wow, I'm free now. Like, it felt strange, but then I was like, okay, let me try to do something productive with my life. Because I didn't have anything lined up at that point. So I just quit cold turkey, and everybody was surprised by that because they thought like, how could you do this? You should always have something lined up afterwards. But
yeah, a lot of people say it's not very often you see someone that says, you know what, I'm gone, bye-bye.
Yeah, like, but as I said, I had enough savings. I just like, you know what, I could literally live off my savings for 2 years.
Nice. That's very rare for someone to actually have, but
yeah, in 2.5 years of working, I basically managed to have plenty of like resource to be able to do that. So yeah, first day, I want to be productive because I needed to do something.
It's good. What did you end up doing?
I ended up going for a run.
Fair enough.
And guess what? I bumped into my cousin. Yeah, no, I was like just randomly end up bumping into him and just having a chat and like seeing how his life is. Yeah, it just gave me a bit, or like hindsight, I was like, yeah, maybe this is not a bad choice. Like I'm opening myself up to more opportunities and yeah, I could just explore. But it was a strange feeling. It's like, what do I do now?
Yeah, all the sense of freedom, and you just did not know what to do with it.
Yeah, like I was still applying for jobs before I quit.
Yeah, I think that's the first sign where it's like you're not happy there.
Yeah, like it's usually the case. It's like I was already looking at different jobs, I was already interviewing, etc. But yeah, I didn't get anything. But I was like, yeah, I'll get something eventually. So there's no rush.
Okay.
The freedom was overwhelming at first, but I got a hang of it the first couple of months. I didn't have anything lined up. I still had a few interviews that didn't go my way. Nothing really panned out. I was starting to getting a little bit disheartened, but at the same time, it's like I'm the type of person that'll just keep on going and just keep on.
You need to be, yeah.
But during that time process, shortly after I quit, I ended up basically going to Mexico for the first week on my own. And then afterwards, my colleague from the company I quit ended up going to Mexico, and we ended up basically traveling there. So that was good fun.
Nice.
So yeah, I stayed there for like 3 weeks. Got to enjoy it. I loved it there. Basically had some self-reflection during the time period. I was reading a book which is called Ego is the Enemy. It made me kind of realize that there's more to life than just work. And kind of the book is to some degree about that, and just basically getting some retrospective.
Well, you're supposed to enjoy your work, but you're supposed to enjoy life. You're going to get one.
Exactly. And I think that was my first start of my journey, like where I started to get happy. So quitting and just going on a slight adventure. So I went to Mexico, then came back shortly.
How long were you in Mexico for?
3 weeks, a month. So
3 weeks to a month?
Yeah, it was,
nice.
it was not too long, but long enough for me to enjoy it. And
to get that break.
To get that break and finally open up and loosen up and actually rest. Because even in the past, when I used to go on holidays while I was working,
it's hard to unwind, yeah.
I was unable to unwind for at least a week.
Yeah. It does take a long time because it takes 2 weeks to get a break from a habit, and then another week or 2 weeks after that to actually revel in whatever you're trying to do.
No, exactly that. So I was stuck in my headspace where I was still kind of working for the first 2 weeks, and luckily I managed to snap out of it relatively quickly, shortly after quitting my job and then going traveling. So that was great. Came back to London, enjoyed the London summer, because actually London is quite nice during the summer.
Yeah, it is. It can get muggy, but it's nice.
Yeah, I get most summers are not too bad. So there's plenty of things to do. So I ended up spending like a month in London, just exploring, doing my bits and pieces, like cycling around. Yeah, because that helps me with my mental health. And then
so you're obviously an exercise fanatic then. You love to exercise for your mental health and everything. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, I love my sports. Always did. So then afterwards I went to Canada as well to visit my cousin, which was soon to be married.
Nice. So this period you were just traveling and just seeing new things and changing the sceneries, basically.
Yeah, change of scenery, trying to get perspective, trying to get a grasp of what I'm missing out in life. Because I always felt like I was a bit of a money pincher a lot of times. Like I was always careful about my spending, like
the best offers, and obviously
exactly.
Make sure you're not spending more than you need to spend.
Yeah, like back in uni, I had a calculator running in the back of my mind all the time.
So, really?
Yeah, it would be basically every time I would go grocery shopping or if I spend anything, I would literally have basically a dial for every day, counting up everything I was spending.
So I take it when you went for the holidays, you sort of took this calculator out.
Yeah, to some degree. It was still there.
But you dimmed his voice a bit, basically.
Yeah, like after when I started working, I started to dim down slowly just because I started to make a living, finally, a decent one.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like gradually started to reduce, but I was still stressed out. Like I couldn't snap out of that habit yet. Only after traveling, and then getting my most recent job, and then having additional finding some recent partners, that it kind of helped me to unwind and actually open up and change my mentality, which also was a massive mental break for me.
I was gonna say there must have been a big weight off your head.
Yes, it has been I don't have to worry about money anymore, which is. Not a lot of people can say that.
It's very hard to say, especially in this economy.
Yeah, especially in this economy. So I kind of appreciate it. Still, obviously, I worry about it, but it's not that big of a issue. I no longer open up my bank account twice a day. Like in uni, I was literally opening up my bank account twice a day, checking, and it's just I'm so glad I'm past that.
I mean, money is it's a big part of happiness, I would say, as much as people don't want to admit it. It is. Because
it's a tool.
It's a tool that makes you happy because it allows you to do things. Coming up, Michail learns what a healthy relationship really looks like and what truly matters to him. Plus, we'll dive deep into the unforgettable travels and how he financed it all. If you're enjoying this journey, support the show on Patreon. You get exclusive content like more narrative-driven shorts, vote on season's themes, and help us keep the stories coming. Visit the Patreon link down below to learn more. Welcome back. So far, we've heard about Michail's growth in relationships and how he started to understand what's truly important to him. Now, we're about to explore his travels, how they shaped his sense of self, and how he financed these life-changing experiences. Okay, you mentioned that you traveled a lot with partners.
Not just travel with partners, but just genuine. I had like a few like girlfriends here and there, but each one of them added a bit to me as a person.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot from them.
Were these people you met on your travels in different countries, or?
Some, like one person, yes, but the rest, no. Like it's just mostly for
They're
dating
from
apps
London,
or from university is like one of them as well. So it's just, yeah, like to be fair, I also owe it a lot to them for how I've changed as a person the past few years.
How did they change you as a person?
They just gave me a different perspective.
Like what?
With my first partner, I kind of knew that somebody could love me just for me. And even though it didn't work out in the end, but we still care about each other to this day. At the end of the day, like at least I got to experience what a good relationship could look like.
Yeah.
Even though this one definitely had some issues, especially during COVID, where we were like doing long distance. That was pretty tough for like 2 years.
Yeah, long distance relationships are very hard.
Yeah, so we had a 2-year long distance during pretty much COVID, and it's like at the end of it, it came down to that plus other probably like problems between us. But yeah, I learned about myself from that quite a lot, and then thereafter, like I dated around a little bit, just seeing what I like and what I don't like, and also like what that is important to me personally. And then then I end up having one partner, which basically made me spend a lot more money than I wanted to.
Right.
Which was good, because at least it made me snap out of it. Like,
so would you say this particular partner actually made you spend your money quite freely, where you're not, this sort of calculator's gone from you?
No, it was still there.
But I mean, reduced.
It wasn't reduced, but it forced me to rethink how I thought about it. Like I was on my new job at that point.
Okay.
So I was in my new job at this point, which I'm still at the moment. And I was like, okay, so yeah, I'm finally able to live a nice lifestyle in London and just explore and not really care as much as I used to. But I was still not in that headspace where I could do that. But she kind of helped me get out of it along that journey.
Okay.
It didn't work out with her, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, I still respect her.
I mean, these things happen. I mean, what ended up happening between you guys?
It just like we were together for about half a year when traveling, to France one time. But it just didn't work out because at the end of the day, we just were quite different people to some degree. I think I was not as exciting to her as I first made myself seem, because I do have like depth of personalities. Like I can be quite out there and quite exciting, but I can't do that all the time.
Yeah, you gotta have recharging times.
Not just the recharging times, but I do have like seasonal affective disorder, like SAD, as some people refer to it. Like I didn't really realize that at the time as well.
Okay, how did you realize that?
Every time like winter came, I would just basically get a bit more depressed, and I think she started to see the more depressed side of me during the winter times, and just me kind of shutting down and just like knuckling down at work, and just probably just seeing me in a way that she didn't really want to be with a partner like that, which is perfectly fair. Everybody has different expectations. So like I can have my ups and lows, but she didn't like my low.
I mean, to be honest, you want a partner that's there for you when you're happy and when you're sad, no matter how long it is. Yeah, exactly. And vice versa, you want to be there for the same person. That's the whole reason of having a partner.
Yeah, so like for me, like it also felt like they got bored of me to some degree, because it is what it is. I fully respect her. Yeah. I have no quarrels with that.
But at least the split happened amicably. I mean, are you with someone right now? Or?
I am actually, but it's only starting phases. I was in a long like a year relationship recently, which was probably the best relationship I ever had. But I had to basically end it.
I understand.
For another completely different reason.
Fair enough. But these things happen.
But it taught me a lot about myself. Like pretty much every single relationship I've had, it was a teaching moment, because I unlocked a new part of myself, and I understood what is important, because they kind of opened my horizons to see how they see the world, and then I got to live in their kind of footsteps as well, and just like see how they see it.
So with these travel partners, I know you mentioned Mexico and everything else, but with these particular partners, where did you travel to, and what places were the most memorable, and why? Even on your own, I mean, what were the most memorable parts of your travel adventures?
No, my traveling adventures are definitely a big part of me right now.
Okay.
Just because I'm trying to explore the world, and I'm going to be doing it for the foreseeable future. I'd say like it's just opening my horizon and seeing the culture out there, and also just seeing how, like, and if you're traveling with somebody else, it oftentimes reveals a different part of them, because you have to plan something with them, you have like organize stuff, see them in stressful situations and whatnot, and then you get to gauge whether that's somebody you can spend a considerable amount of time with or not, and if it was like too early or like too late. Do those types of trips. The ones that I probably would have to highlight, the ones I like the most, is probably when last summer, I went to Tanzania, Africa.
Okay.
So that was quite fun. That was definitely very memorable. I was out there for about 10 days.
10 days, right.
So I went to like safari, went to Zanzibar, like the island, but I was traveling with some family friends.
Okay.
So it was a really lovely time. And then directly from there, I flew to Amsterdam, and I met up for the first time with my decade-old like friends, which I've never met ever in real life. I've always been speaking to them online.
Okay.
And I got to meet them for the first time, because they went to Europe, and we went traveling through Amsterdam, so we enjoyed some time there, and then we went to Cologne, Germany, to go to a gaming festival.
So you've really been traveling around. That's really good. How did you finance all of this? Because I'm assuming £2,000. It wouldn't have to finance everything.
Okay, that trip, like going to Tanzania and then going to Europe, that was like 3 weeks. I spent I'd say between £7,500 to £10,000 for my travels.
How did you actually finance all of this, considering that your savings at this point were going down?
I built them up again.
How? How did you build them up?
I'm quite good at saving. Let's just put it that way.
I know, I understand that, but I mean, if you've left your job, where will the extra income be coming?
Oh no, because I started my new job, and
So you need job.
Yeah, so it's quite well paying. So
talk to me about this new job. What made you want to join there, and were they another startup or?
No, actually they were a scale up, so they already have been around for over a decade.
All right, so there was a point of growing really fast.
Yeah, so they're growing very fast, and they want to produce better software. So they had very basic software, which is like, it wasn't very thought out. And they want to bring in somebody who has the expertise of how to launch a software from start to finish. So because I worked in a startup, I knew how to basically design from scratch, and that's literally exactly what I did.
Did you not think it's going to be a lot more pressure, a lot more time?
Yeah, all of that.
So you did think that? But
no, but I went for it head first because I wanted that. I wanted to be in charge of my own time. So actually, I am in charge of my own department.
Okay, nice.
So yeah.
That's really, really good. Okay, so talk to me about this new job. When you joined and everything else, how long have you been with this job for now?
I've been in this current role for just over 2 years.
In these 2 years, how has it been for you compared to your first job? In terms of happiness, in terms of your mental well-being, is it something you've always wanted?
It's kind of what I wanted, because I got to, like, I went from social commerce, the first job I had in a startup, and this one is a fintech.
Wow, okay.
So financial, like software. And yeah, very different space, very regulated, a lot of rules. So I need to be very careful, constantly be tested to make sure that we're compliant, and just doing a lot of tests like every other month to make sure that we're constantly making sure that we're not doing anything illegal. So it was a different, I had to change my headspace a little bit, but it was quite exciting because I was brought in as an expert, and they treated me as such, which is perfect. And that's exactly how I wanted to. I'm doing fairly well, at least I was. They gave me raises as soon as I joined the company as well, which is quite nice.
Okay.
So, like, obviously I was doing a pretty good job. They relied heavily on me to make some choices and decisions early on, which I didn't really get to make in my previous.
So you felt valued, you felt you were finally where you wanted to be.
Kind of, yeah. So, like, I was definitely feeling a lot more valued, and like I was finally getting back on top of my game. So I actually was learning stuff. So one of the reasons why I also wanted to quit my previous job is because I stagnated. Like, for me, learning is a part of my identity.
Yeah.
Like, I need to challenge myself. If
Yeah.
I'm not challenged, I get bored very, very quickly.
Okay.
So yeah, this was a massive challenge. So I was the first person to join this organization as a designer. I quickly basically told them, like, I also need some help. So I've basically hired one person at the moment, so which we've been basically cracking down and getting a lot of work done.
Nice.
And like, funny story about that is he's actually 1 year above me in my university.
You mentioned the fact that when the weather was changing, it affects your mood.
Yes.
And obviously at the time you were in a relationship with the woman, and obviously she couldn't take it, and obviously you parted ways and everything else. How did it affect you mentally?
Mentally, probably not so well, just because I didn't understand what happened. I didn't really get closure.
Right. She just sort of left.
In a way, like, we had some discussions, but I really just, well, we didn't have like a proper sit down and to get a better understanding of why it happened or like the reason behind it, which honestly, communication in a relationship is the most important thing you could have.
I agree.
And yeah, like, in that sense of, yeah, there's some things which weren't closed. So I still had some like feelings, holding on to feelings which technically weren't healthy, and even afterwards. But yeah, I passed through it, so it's not an issue. But at the same time, yeah, it wasn't great, just because, yeah, I just didn't know why.
Did this hinder you getting your happiness? Because I'm assuming during this time you'd already left your job and everything else.
Yeah, that was I already started my new job.
Yeah, and then obviously you're getting a bit better. Did that slow down your mojo in terms of living your happiest life?
For a brief moment, but I actually, from like self-help, so I just end up basically going and exploring, reading books about, and also topics.
But what did you do for self-help? Because I think it's quite important that. So a lot of people, right, they'll be sad. Sometimes they don't even know why they're sad. How did you start to understand what's happiness for you?
I just went down and explored what I actually enjoy doing. So for me, like, I like traveling. I like spending time with my friends. I'm a bit of a geek, and so like I love playing board games and like sometimes video games if I have time.
Likewise.
Yeah, so just basically exploring what I personally enjoy. There's always like, but I felt like something was missing. Like, the problem is, like, I jumped from relationship to relationship trying to fill a void or a hole.
Coming up, we'll dive into Michail's childhood, his happiest memories, the struggles he faced, and how his relationship with his parents shaped him. Welcome back. So far, we've explored Michail's understanding of healthy relationships and life-changing travels. Now, we'll take a deeper look into his childhood and family dynamics. And this one is a roller coaster. What was that void?
I don't know, maybe just lack of love, or maybe I just didn't love myself enough. Like, I felt like for a long time that I needed somebody in my life to fill that void, because I needed their love in order to like make me happy. But it put a lot of strain on a lot of my relationships, because in order for me to be happy, they have to be happy, or like vice versa. It's hard to explain. It's just I put too much pressure.
I do understand. How did you combat that?
Again, it just took time. Like, I only discovered, like, understood that recently. Only recently have I got to a point where I was comfortable with letting go. And also just like the void was no longer there. Actually, that happened like the past few months, to be honest, where I no longer felt like I needed somebody in my life to make me happy. But it took years.
It does take a long time, it does. But I think the first step is recognizing it, accepting it, and then doing something about it.
Well, I couldn't necessarily do anything about it. It's for learned experience, or it's like
Well, yeah.
your emotional state. For me, it's more my emotional state. So even though I'm quite closed off ish, like to most people, like I can look quite menacing to some degree. I'm a tall guy, like a 6 foot 2. But yeah, so most of the time, like, have a resting bitch face at work, so people are like afraid to approach me. So like, I do have a like persona where I seem like I'm quite stoic or just like very calm, but
inside you're feeling something else.
Yeah, inside I can be like, I hide my feelings pretty well.
Why do you hide your feelings?
I think it's a defense mechanism from childhood, because I was traumatized a lot.
How?
Moving countries, learning a new language, adopting to a new lifestyle, seeing my parents go for a divorce.
That must have really took a toll on you.
Yeah, that's not even all of it.
But, yeah, I can imagine, but it'd be quite a big thing, especially when it comes to being happy and actually accepting who you are. Obviously, you've said it took a long time. Yeah. Would you say your childhood and I guess even your early teens and your late teens, would you say you're quite alone?
Yeah, I had quite a lonely childhood during my teenage years. Like, my parents would describe me as a very happy, very excited child when I was younger. And then once we made the move to the UK, I just closed off. I just became very depressed, very, isolated. But that's basically due to the environment I was in. So, like, I was relentlessly bullied. I still kind of resent, like, parts of Essex or just, like, some of the Essex culture just because I would go bullied really, really badly.
Bullied for what?
Just for being different, for being, like, people to some just being prejudiced towards me.
Really?
Yeah, for just being tall. I also, like, I didn't really understand the culture at the time.
Because you were new and you were learning.
Not just that, I think it's just also, like, my personality. Like, I grew up in a very, like, direct environment where I took everything as face value. I didn't really understand sarcasm until teenage years.
Okay.
And kids were very sarcastic. And they would pick me. I didn't get that.
What was the click? When did you start to understand it?
I don't know. I think closer to, like, when I was like 13, I started to kind of get it. And only as soon as I started to get it, I got moved to another secondary school, my third secondary school at this point.
Why did you move to so many secondary schools?
Family issues. Basically, my parents having to move around. My mom having to move to London to support my brother at the time. Like, going through, like, divorce a few years back from my dad. It was a difficult time. There's a lot of things going on. But then, just had to, like, endure, do the best I could.
Interesting. Okay, so obviously you mentioned you've had a rough childhood.
To some degree.
To some degrees.
Yeah.
And obviously you've had a bit of a lonely, I guess, teenage times and everything else. When do you think in your lifetime was the first time you experienced true happiness in your eyes for you?
I think shortly, like, the best decision in my life was to quit my job. I think that was honestly a revelation for me. Like, I felt my first remnants of happiness then, and also, like, maybe during the first year of uni, I felt quite free as well.
Within your whole life at this point?
Yeah, that was my first times I felt. Or maybe early childhood, but then that's too early.
So that's too early, you don't actually remember?
Yeah, there's, like, if I have a few good, like, memories in my childhood, like during my birthdays where I felt quite nice, but everything up until that point, I was just like, it was usually happy moments, but I was always overthinking it. I was struggling. I was always like me against the world sort of thing.
Why was that the case?
That's just, like, financial difficulties was, well, like, one of them for sure. So as I said, I didn't make friends very easily either, and the few friends I do have, I basically keep them around, and I help other people. I also am the type of person I never ask for help, which is bad. I'm trying to.
Is that because you don't want to feel like a burden, or?
Yes, I never want to feel like a burden. That's definitely part of it. I also just don't want, like, people. Well, I'm more than happy to help people, but I just have the expectation if I help someone, they'll want something back. And it's like, I just don't want, like, to also owe people anything. Unless I really, really know them and trust them, like, to like, do things out of, like, love and respect. But I just,
I mean, you mentioned that it's not healthy. I mean, I would agree with you. It is the kind of world we live in a way. But there are some good people out there as well. Would you say you're trying to find a way out of that sort of mentality, or is it something very hardwired into you?
It's partially hardwired, but I'm also coming out of it. Like, as I said, I've grown a lot as a person in the past, like 5, 7 years. Like, every year, I've definitely made massive steps in my mental health, my clarity, just basically awareness. And yeah, definitely like coming out of depression. Like, I was suicidal as a kid. That's like one as well.
How old were you at this point when you're feeling suicidal?
I was suicidal doing like maybe when I was 8, 10. Yeah, like around when I was 10ish. And even before that, I used to like, I was so depressed, I literally cut my hand.
Why? What was so bad that made you want to do it?
Physical pain was a relief.
But from what?
Like, I was so hurt mentally, I was so depressed and hurt. Like, I felt a release by actually like hurting myself.
Because he distracted you.
Yeah, it was a distraction. Like, my first moment, like, if I was like self-harm, it was not intentional. I cut my hand when I was 8.
Really?
Yeah, and then after that, like in my teenage years, yeah, I wanted to like throw myself out a window because I was bullied so badly. I literally had to make like police reports of people throwing bottles as I was cycling through a park. Yeah, so it was a rough time.
Interesting. So how did you get over that? That's a big thing to get over.
Yeah, that's why I also have trust issues. Like, I don't know what people are like necessarily and like what is going on in their head and the resentment they have built up because the kids are acting the way they are because their parents acted the same way. Like, my parents also told me, is like, they didn't really have a great time in Essex either. Like, they definitely had a lot of prejudice against them because as foreigners, it's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Right.
But it's something you have to kind of grow out of. London is definitely a lot more diverse. It's a much better environment for that.
Yes, I do agree. I do agree. Interesting. So obviously, you spent a long time not being happy.
Yes.
And uni was probably the first time you experienced it completely.
Not completely, but a remnants of control. It was very difficult for me to unwind and unlock myself, like, from my childhood. Obviously, I was depressed, suicidal, had a very rough time. Also, was diagnosed with dyslexia very late into my education, so I was always struggling in school. I only found my niche like later on. Like, even basically failed a year at school as well. So when I went straight out of Forest Gate, when I went there, secondary school, I went to Chobham.
So you went through all of that, and you've actually still managed to find your happiness.
Yeah, I'd say my happiness started to appear shortly after, like, I quit my job, started to get more control, got paid and basically respected and like valued for what I can basically bring. And then so it's like it's kind of snowballed. Then going for different relationships, it helped unlock different parts of me and also understand what's important to me. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I'm definitely a lot happier now compared to like, yeah,
Back then, yeah.
several years back.
Yeah. How would you say your entire experience has actually changed you? I mean, like, what's different now to what your life was then? There's a big difference, definitely. But if you could sum it up, what's the biggest difference that you would say? I mean, aside from being happy and everything else, I mean, what other things are there that's different that makes your life so appealing now for you?
Like, the most important things in my life that I want are, well, I would say freedom, but my definition of freedom is also partially like linked to financial freedom. So, but that stems from having control.
Yeah.
So, because of my situation with my manager, my first job, and just thereafter and before, and also like my parents getting divorced, being moved around to different schools.
Why did your parents divorce, if you don't mind me asking?
Like, they weren't compatible. Like, my dad is a man-child. I felt like the parent to my dad.
Really?
Time. Yeah. Because when we were like living together, he acted very, very irrationally. He was sometimes like being a bit racist, and I had to teach him how to behave. Imagine a 14-year-old teaching their father how to act properly and telling them, you cannot do that. explaining them like this is not allowed. You should not behave do this way, doing their paperwork, doing documents for them, and be like, why am I as a child taking on the responsibility of my parents? Sure, I speak better like English than them. I had to grow up very quickly, and I think that's also one of the reasons why I was quite unhappy, is because I had to grow up so quickly.
I was gonna ask, so the fact that you had to grow up so quickly is what made you very unhappy as well.
I lost parts of my childhood.
What parts what parts would you say you lost, or if you could reclaim them back, what would you want to reclaim?
Just feeling a sense of like, again, like freedom, just basically just being able to have a few days where, well, I'm not stressed out, or like don't see my parents stressed out or fighting, or just basically just living an ordinary life. My first sign of an ordinary life and how it could be was when I was actually dating someone like in college, and I got to basically spend a lot of time with her family, and it's like a very middle class British family, like not, and I just got to see how they basically interacted with one another, and what a healthy relationship between like parents their kids should look like.
Did you feel like it was weird, like you were in a dream at all?
It kind of felt dreamy. Yeah, it felt like it's completely different reality. It's like seeing how other people live their life versus mine, and I was like, okay, well, I definitely had a lot rougher, and like things were definitely out of my control, but I can't blame my parents entirely. Like they had their issues, like having to move around. They definitely struggled themselves. So like
Yeah.
all due respect to them, like they did a good job. Like me and my brother turned out pretty well, all things considered.
No, it's good. It's good. Interesting. From your entire journey, what's the one lesson you've taken that you think others could benefit from?
I'd say just don't be afraid to take the leap sometimes. Like stay strong, like persevere, and like take the leap. Don't be afraid to take a calculated risk. Like for me, calculated risks are highly important. The only reason I quit my job is because I felt secure enough to do it. And even then, I would have been probably happier off even if I wasn't so secure and I did it. I think I would have been quite good. So yeah, depending on who you are and how you want to go about things. For me, I just need to make sure that I'm a planner. I need to make sure that things line up and I am comfortable with it.
Would you say, I guess, the sense of wanting order in your life, it comes from having a lack of order in your childhood?
Yeah, definitely. Lack of order, just wanting to live my life the way I want to live it, rather than being dictated by other people. Doesn't mean that I don't abide by laws, but
No, of course. What would you want to say to that little boy who was going through extreme emotions where he wanted to cut himself to be happy? What would you want to say to him?
I would say it does get better, but sometimes it takes a lot longer than you think.
I think a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to happiness, especially if you're going through really rough patches, you've got to be able to go through it for long periods to reach true happiness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely getting to a point where I'm a lot happier. Wouldn't say I've reached my full happiness.
But you're there.
Yeah, I am definitely there. I am definitely there. But
That's
it's a road. It's a journey. Like, and we should appreciate all the moments in the past, because those are our learning blocks.
What would you say happiness means to you now after everything you've been through?
To me personally, take a chill pill. That's what I would say to myself. Like as in a funny like retrospect,
Just relax.
just relax. Like is yeah, I put too much pressure on myself, way too much, and sometimes it can be counterintuitive. Like a bit of pressure, a bit of like stress, like in examining situations.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, you need
it
that.
can be beneficial, but when you overload yourself and you do that every day for years, it can build up, and yeah, you kind of torture yourself, and it's not worth it.
I think that's a big trait of workaholics.
Yeah, I'm trying to like. I was definitely a workaholic. Now I wouldn't consider myself a workaholic. I've definitely somewhat transitioned out of it.
You transition. How, for those people who have not and are workaholics, that like they work to get rid of other negative emotions, what would you say to them?
I'd say reevaluate what's important to you. I think that's the most important thing. Like I'd say, is just keep on trying to find what really makes you you. And sometimes, yeah, it is very difficult. But you will find probably more value in that than your work. For example, like if you know what your dream is, and you know if you want to help people, like sometimes you will get a lot more satisfaction out of that than doing the actual job. For a lot of people, there's like meaning in life becomes family and like taking care of their kids. So it's oftentimes they use that as a reason to live. So yeah, I'd say just find your reason to live.
Interesting. And my final question to you would be, to this date, after everything you've experienced, what's the happiest memory you have?
That's a hard one. I always go back to when I was probably like 8, 9, or 10 years old. On my birthday, I was surrounded by family in my grandparents' beautiful garden, and they invited a bunch of my friends as well as some family members, and we had a beautiful like barbecue slash like meal, like sun shining on the patio, and like it was just a very nice environment. I just remember that day, and I was like, I think that's my happy place. I always look back on that, and yeah, I'd say that's. I just want to be surrounded by family. I just want to be surrounded by people that care and love me, and be around greenery, because I'm a quite a green person a lot of the time. So I think that's my happiest memory.
I'm surprised going through what you've been through, you actually still want to be around family, because a lot of people wouldn't. So it's quite surprising.
I mean, I still respect.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course.
Like I still love my mom, although I have actually we missed that one part. I actually cut my dad out of my life pretty much a year ago now.
Why? Or how?
He was quite toxic to me, so like I'm actually a lot happy for cutting him out of my life. I feel a lot more relaxed. The reason why is because he was putting a lot of pressure. He was, as I said, he's quite like sometimes behaves like a man child. Like everybody owes him something,
Right.
sort of thing. And
Yeah.
he basically borrowed money from me as well. So some money like for property, I gave him like probably close to £7,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Over a period of like multiple years, and even after, that's actually he asked after I quit my job, so I was no longer working, and he basically got like I ended up giving him money like during my downtime.
So you had no money to begin with, and you're still giving him money.
Yeah, I was still giving the money,
Right.
because I just felt like I owed him for the help he gave me during uni. As I said, I don't like to owe people. For me, I still kind of had a feeling that I still owed him for the help to some degree, because he just basically demanded it to some degree and needed constant help. But then like a year ago, he got into some weird situation where he was like trading or doing some stupid thing online, and then basically needed more money again. And it's like I was stressed out of my mind at work. I was actually considering quitting my current job, but we skipped that situation. But yeah, you put a lot of pressure on me, and I just like called me. It's like, oh yeah, give me £1,000 like pounds right now. I need it. I need it. I'm like, it was like
He was demanding.
pretty much like not demanding, but I was like, I need it right now. Like just high pressure,
Urgent.
and I was already stressed out of my mind at work.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't have time for this. If you need it, like, and you care more about it. I was like, I smashed my desk in, so I had a hole in my desk from like just basically angry from that call. And then I sent him the money. I'm like, it was like, yeah, here's your money. I care about the money more than you care about my mental health. And like since then, and he laughed about it. I was like, haha, I'll get you a new desk. I'm like, that's not the point. And then, yeah, I decided to, enough is enough. Like, I don't need somebody so toxic in my life that's constantly trying to gain something out of me. And I'm not really...
You don't want to be used. You want to be there for someone to know that you can be counted on and that you can count on them, but not used.
Yeah, I felt that I was being used. And that's exactly what, like, and again, I don't like that. It's just, for me, I want to get the toxic people out of my life that want to use me in that sense.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. And it was a great story. As we wrap up today's episode, Michail's advice offers valuable steps we can all take towards finding our own happiness. He reminds us that it's okay to take risks, but also essential to slow down and focus on what truly matters. Whether it's re-evaluating your priorities or learning to appreciate your journey, happiness takes time and perseverance. So, if you're feeling lost or overwhelmed, remember, take a step back, trust yourself, and find your purpose. No matter the circumstances life gave you, it's your responsibility to break free and find happiness. It's all part of the process, and like Michail, you can reclaim your happiness too. Thank you for listening to this story. Don't forget to check out our Patreon for more stories coming your way and for a chance to vote on next year's season's theme. Until then, I'm Zafran Ahmed, and this is Whispers in the Wind, giving your stories a voice. Thank you for listening. Whispers in the Wind.